We're going to get right to it, and it's fitting that we begin with Jim Shelton, president of the Chan-Zuckerberg Education Initiative, former Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, former Program Director at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and most importantly, a leading thinker on the key question of how we're going to go beyond the usual incrementalism, the usual narrow gauge reform, and actually deliver that big transformation. Welcome.
Morning. It's so funny because I feel funny standing up here. I went to grad school here, and let me start slightly differently. So I went in the back to send a note, and Dave said, "Are you figuring out what you're going to say?" And I said, "No, I worked on that already." But there's a funny thing about me, which is that I can only say what I actually feel in that moment. And I was sitting here and thinking about my time at Stanford, and I was actually thinking about when I was here, I used to spend a lot of time at East Palo Alto. And like right here is Stanford, and right there is East Palo Alto. And it's been that way forever. Now, East Palo Alto is changing, but it didn't change for the people who were there. And I think in a lot of ways, like that is where we are today. And so I want us to, as we engage in this work where there is tremendous opportunity to recognize that we are not the first to gather to talk about this problem. We are not the smartest, but we have a unique opportunity because of the time in which we live. Now, I had a quote that I was going to start with, and I still will, though it actually has a slightly different feeling for me than when it was, which is from RFK. It is, a revolution is coming. A revolution which will be peaceful if we are wise enough, compassionate if we care enough, successful if we are fortunate enough, but a revolution which is coming whether we will it or not. We can affect its character, we can alter its inevitability. So we here today are gathered to focus on a problem that has been pervasive through multiple generations. When I took time last year to be a fellow with Bridgespan and Results for America, I did some work on social mobility and the American dream. And the sad statistics are that we have actually stagnated in terms of social mobility in this country. And as we learned recently, lots of Americans feel like they are detached from the American dream. There is a pressing need for an injection of renewed optimism. But that optimism needs to be based on the reality that we can actually do something about it. Now, I feel a little bit fraudulent being here as a guy who's kind of known for transformation and innovation, I have to say, because my singular claim to fame, my great innovative insight in government was, if you have a little bit of evidence, you should get a little bit of money, and if you have a lot of evidence, you should get a lot of money. Like, that was it. And even then, the funny thing about it was, we had this program that in that competitive program, you had to have the highest level of evidence in order to get the big grants. At one point, it was $50 million, and it dropped to $25 million. Meanwhile, billions of dollars flow out every year with no criteria at all. Spend it as you will. Now, I believe in spending money to serve our people. I believe that we make Americans' lives better every single day through the work that government does. But I know we can make it so much better. I am honored to be, they say I'm co-hosting, guess what? Of course Dave did all the work, and of course Elizabeth did all the work, and of course I put in like a little bit of money, so I get like a, but the reality is that I'm like honored to be with people who are actually doing the work every day, like many of you. Now, I'm going to pick on my friend Elizabeth. Where are you, Elizabeth? So Elizabeth, I think, is one of the great social entrepreneurs because of what she did to found Single Stop. But Elizabeth also knows I'm like, you created something that should have never existed. For those who don't know Single Stop, it created a mechanism for people to be able to easily access the benefits to which they were already entitled. Think about that. Magnificent, served many people, changed many lives. But what was it? It was an acknowledgement of the failure of our public systems to create the kind of interfaces that actually serve our people really well. It's just that simple. It doesn't need to be that way. Imagine if we had systems that were based on what worked, where funding flowed to those things that had the best possible chance of providing those outcomes. And it was easy to get people connected with those things because we had the data and the access and the low cost structure to get it to everyone who needed it and hardly anyone else. How different would our outcomes be? How different would our spending be? So those are the questions that I hope we wrestle with today. I'm so happy to see so many of the people that I know well in this room, but to be honest, I am most excited to see so many people I don't know in this room. Because this, at no other time, needs to be a movement. It needs to be something that every local government and every state government and every county and every intermediate unit, they need to understand how it can work. Hopefully our federal government stays in the game. If we wind up bundling bundles of money and sending it down to states, wouldn't it be nice if it was tied to evidence and or performance? So I know I'm not like the uplifting morning speaker. I figure you guys came in jazzed, unless you're like on East Coast time, sorry. But I do think that this is the conversation to have. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I want to up front thank Elizabeth and Dave and Raj and David for the incredible amount of work and insight that has gone into putting this event together and the work that they're going to do. I think we're going to learn about some pretty radical things. And there's work to be done. I look forward to working with you to do it. Thank you.